Hi guys, Pete Mazeris, the Home Inspector Mentor. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody has had a productive year and is looking forward to an even more productive year next year. So time to prepare. But today I'd like to talk to you about handling customer complaints, in particular a one-star Google review and a case study on how we just had one and how I handled it. And so inevitably you're going to get a bad review. Okay, you're only human. People don't understand sometimes what we do as home inspectors, even though they agree to what we're supposed to do, but then they don't read exactly what we're supposed to do, and then something goes wrong and they want to blame us, okay, because we're the ones with the big target on our backs. Even though we only charge a few $100s for our services, clients think we should be responsible for tens of thousands of dollars in supposed damages, right? So good luck with that. So anyway, none of us get into this business to do bad work, right? And we're only human and we make mistakes. And so that's why we have an inspection agreement. It's why we have standards and practices. It's why we have reporting that includes pictures and disclaimers in that report. And it's why we have E&O insurance, right? And so with that said, it's pretty hard to sue a home inspector, but it's not hard to post a one-star Google complaint if you get buyer's remorse, you don't do your own due diligence as a buyer. You want to blame everybody but yourself for perhaps buying a house that has more upkeep, maintenance, repair costs than you anticipated. So that's fine. So when that happens, the way I approach it, of course, is to immediately go on site to that buyer's home and listen to what their issue is and put my problem solving hat on. Okay, I'm not out to immediately defend myself or my inspectors, because that can come off in a negative way for you as a home inspector, business owner, to immediately go into defense mode. It's part of being a business owner, is addressing complaints. Every business owner in every single career capacity has complaints. Okay, those home inspector companies that you see with 2,000 reviews and all of them are 5-star, they weren't all 5-star reviews. They figured out a way how to remove the 1-star reviews. Typically, it's done by refunding that buyer their inspection fee. So anybody who says I haven't had any 1-star reviews, they're not telling the truth. But this isn't about them, and I don't care how they operate their business anyway. I care how about you operate your business. And so this particular complaint that we had alleged that one of my inspectors did not perform the air conditioning inspection properly. 40-year-old AC, which operated fine during the home inspection. In fact, my inspector ran it for 2 hours, had pictures of the AC working, showed pictures of the temperature gauge before and after the evaporator coil, okay, which is a great thing that you should consider doing. Proves that the AC was running and cooling at the time of the inspection. Very easy thing to do. You take a picture of your thermometer in front of the coil and behind the coil, okay? The return air, the supply air, however you want to do it, doesn't matter, as long as you show that temperature drop. So the fallacy of running and operating an AC that's older is that you can measure an acceptable temperature drop, but if that AC is older and low on refrigerant, if it is operated for a longer period of time, let's say when the clients move in a couple months later, and they run it all day and all night, it's possible that that system was low on refrigerant in the first place and gave you a false signal that it was operating okay. And so then the buyer moves into the home, runs it all day and all night, and it freezes up, starts to leak, condensate everywhere, and then the inevitable HVAC technician pronounces the system is leaking refrigerant. That's why it froze up. And since it's 40 years old, it needs replaced, which of course costs $5,000. And so then your client comes back to you and says, whoa, first day we move in, run the AC, it doesn't work, needs to be replaced. You said it was operating fine. That's not the whole story, of course. This particular inspection, we recommended an HVAC technician to evaluate the system for a couple different reasons. Even though we said that it was operating and it was cooling across the evaporator coil, and we showed the evidence of that, showing that 14 to 22 degree temperature drop across the coil, indicating it's operating. The fact that we didn't have other areas of the system, in our opinion, operating correctly, and we advised the client to have it checked out, and no one understand that it's 40 years old at the end of its service life. You think the client read the report? Yeah, they didn't. And so they tried to pin it on us. In fact, the first thing they did was try to turn it in as a claim on their home warranty policy that they just purchased. And of course, the home warranty company is going to request to see our report, which the buyer sent over to them. And then the home warranty company reads our report, sees that the AC is 40 years old, sees that we said it was nearing the end of its life, even though it's operating correctly. But we also recommended that it be evaluated by an HVAC technician because of a couple issues that we observed that were related to the system, not specific to the cooling part, but as far as the airflow part. And so the home warranty company denied the claim. So you didn't, a home inspector said it wasn't operating completely correct and advised you have it checked out by an HVAC technician before you purchased the home. You didn't do that, so we're going to deny your claim. So what's the buyer do? So the buyer can't do really anything, okay? If they had a case, they'd file it with the attorney and try to sue us for that amount. And of course, in my opinion, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere with our claims department based on what was in the report. And so what does the buyer do in frustration? Gives us a 1-star review, which you can go to our Google My Business site. You click in there and then sort on our lowest reviews. And you'll see the 1-star review from this client and my response to it, which I tried to keep professional, but be very firm in asserting that the review is not valid, not true, and that the buyer themselves didn't follow directions. And if they would have, they wouldn't have had this issue. In fact, what I did is I even put a link in my response to that 1-star review back to our sample reports on our website, because I put that report from that buyer for that buyer's house as a sample report, which means that you can't tell who the client, what the client's name is or the address, okay? And the Google review that was posted didn't say who that buyer's name was. It was their initials like DJ or something, okay? So what I did is I linked in my response back to our website where our sample reports are and posted that buyer's report so that anybody reading that one-star review can see the point that I was making, that it's not a valid review and it's not true, but for sake of education and transparency, I, even though thought that it should be taken down, I didn't demand that it was taken down, and I didn't even flag it to Google as being inappropriate or false, because I felt like it's a good thing to show potential buyers who would want to hire us in the future how we operate and how we respond, and how their clients or their buyers or that buyer who's reading it should be careful in understanding things that a home inspection is supposed to be valid for, supposed to cover, and what it doesn't cover. And so I thought it's instructive. And, please go ahead, if you've listened to me this far, take a look at it. It's a deep dive. I know it's technical, but I think it would be instructive for you in your business as a home inspector. And even if you're not a home inspector, if you're a new home buyer looking to hire a home inspector, for you to read through what I'm explaining here in this video. So whenever we do get complaints, obviously we defend ourselves vigorously, respond to all complaints, make it right if we're at fault. In my opinion, if we're not, then I'm thinking, well, okay, in this case, in this scenario, hindsight's 2020, none of us want a complaint to come in, even though if we can't be found financially responsible, it's still not good to have an unhappy customer out in the field that is unhappy with our services, whether it's valid or not, okay? The expectation that customer had, was not to have any problems when they moved their house into their house, even though, technically we're not responsible because of the way inspection agreements are written, the way the standards of practices are written, and so forth. But I still think that, with that said, we have to look back at our process and the way we report and the way we communicate to see how this situation could be prevented in the future, right? That's how you get bulletproof in this industry. You learn from your mistakes. You don't go completely overboard with becoming alarming because of a complaint you get. You're not going to go and say, okay, even though this air conditioning system is running, it's over 15 years old, therefore we recommend replacement. So you can't really say that. But what I decided that we should say in the situation where we measure a temperature drop across an AC that's older than 15 years, we should say that air conditioning system should be measured for how much refrigerant is still in the system, because we don't do that as home inspectors, right? That's a technically exhaustive analysis. If we were to bring pressure gauge equipment to measure how many pounds of refrigerant are in the system, okay? It's beyond the scope of a home inspection. If you start doing things like that, then you're gonna have to start charging more, and you're gonna price yourself out of the market. So it's not what the home inspection business industry is designed to be. Not technically exhaustive, but a shortcoming of just operating a system during a one-time visit to the house and not going further in a recommendation to the buyer as to what they should do further with a particular system that is beyond its design life. For instance, an air conditioning system. You can run an air conditioning system that's low on refrigerant, and it can cool for a short period of time, which is what happens during a home inspection, right? But can actually be not operating, go forward without additional refrigerant, which is expensive these days because the EPA stopped the manufacture of R22, I think, in 2010. And so it's become very expensive to replace R22 systems, right? And so most AC companies are going to say, replace the system because it leaked anyway. It's over X amount of years. Why are you going to spend $1,000 to have to do the same thing next year? Okay, and so that's how ACs get replaced, right? Knowing this, I think that we would serve our customers better by recommending all AC units over 15 or 20 years old, even though they were tested to be in a good operating condition from a cooling standpoint, should be measured for refrigerant content. If the seller can't show evidence that in the last year it was measured during regular seasonal servicing. So now you might say, well, geez, Pete, isn't that kind of alarming now that you're going to recommend that every air conditioning system be measured by an HVAC technician for refrigerant content? Well, my response to that is these days, replacing an AC system has become very expensive. All right? I don't think you can replace an AC system for less than $5,000, and I've heard quotes up to $10,000 or more. And so you have to, again, ask yourself, are you comfortable in signing off with an AC, saying an AC system, worked in the short term during your home inspection, even though it was over 15, 20, 30 years old, and then just saying in your comments, hey, FYI, or monitor, the system is past its useful life, and you should budget for a new AC. Well, the problem is you only ran it for an hour or less. What happens when the client moves in and runs it all day and all night, and the thing ices up, stops working, drips condensate all over the ceiling tiles in the basement, and the HVAC technician comes in and says, there's 2 pounds of refrigerant in here. It's a leaking system. You can't find all the leaks and repair it. You're going to have to replace the system, $7,000. You're going to get that phone call because that client was not expecting that AC to break and be non-operational the very first day that they used it. And so that's how I justify changing our procedure to what I just said. If it's over 15 years old, which, go ahead and Google it, condensers, compressors, AC systems, supposedly only the last 15 to 20 years these days. And so we don't know how much refrigerant is in the system when we test it. We don't know if it's been leaking, okay? All we're doing as home inspectors is operating a system or a component using normal operating procedures. We're not taking it apart. We're not measuring the amount of refrigerant present. And so now you may say that, hey, Pete, you're being alarming now that you're saying every air conditioning system that you find to be operating fine should also be measured to see if it's leaking, if it's low. And if it is, then maybe the AC needs replaced, right? Where otherwise we would never have said that. We would have just said, hey, it's operating. It's in good condition, but it's over 15 years old, which is, beyond its useful life, and it may not last, X amount of years. And so that's what I did. And I encourage you as a home inspector business owner that when you address complaints, you do it in a way that's a problem-solving mode. And then at the same time, you're going to be thinking, okay, did I do this right? Did I make the right call? Could I have done something differently? Granted, hindsight's 20/20. We can't predict the future, but with what we know and discover on that callback, we want to apply to the rest of our future home inspection so it doesn't ever happen again. It's how we become bulletproof. It takes time. And so that's what I've done throughout my career as a single home inspector operator and as a business owner with multi-inspectors. And that's how we get to the point where we get fewer and fewer and fewer seller complaints, buyer complaints, realtor complaints, buyer's realtor complaints, listing realtor complaints, okay? No one's immune from that. It's how we learn. It's how we become better in our industry. It's how we become the best at what we do. Okay, you can't learn it all in a book. You're not going to learn it all because you're a contractor. Okay, you learn it because of experience in the field, and you're intelligent enough to handle complaints professionally, and you have a business mind that you're not going to give away the farm on every complaint that you get. Okay, but you're going to defend yourself, and you're going to do it professionally, and you're going to learn how you can improve your system via corrective action the next time you go out and do a home inspection and report on a certain system or component. So very long video for those of you who have listened to the bitter end. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving. Take care.